Hi, and thank you so much to Workbench and Salesforce Ventures for hosting me today. I am fresh off of a red eye, and so I did bring paper just as a crutch. Okay. My name's Therese. I am, as Meredith just said, the founder and CEO of BlackLine. All right. We sell software that streamlines accounting operations. If you have a deep interest in accounting, you can go visit our website. But that's it. That's all you need to know about that. I've had the unique honor of just having an amazing journey. All right, from starting a software company with nothing, with no employees, with no money, to, and by the way, nobody ever thought that it was going to be successful. We bootstrapped for 12 years. We then went through a private equity process. Ultimately, in October of 2016, we did an IPO. All right, and we have now, as a publicly traded $2 billion company, a market cap, varies widely. One of the things that you learn. All right.
You gotta flip your mic up. No one can hear.
Better?
Is it better?
Okay, good. And I get so busy working that I forget that there's anything unusual about my journey, because I am a heads down person who's trying to get stuff done. I am a builder who's trying to build things and continue to grow what I've been working on. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about those experiences today, and hopefully I'll tell you something that you can take away and learn from and apply to your own business. But I'm going to start with me, all right? I grew up on a farm in rural Illinois, and I am the youngest of 4 girls. My parents never went to college. Their big aspiration for me was that I'd take typing, and hopefully I would get a job as a secretary. Okay, they were not expecting me to use those skills to major in computer science at the University of Illinois. They were very surprised. But it worked out really well because I can type like 80 words a minute, even now, all right? I do get asked about the pink hair, so we'll just address that and move along. Thank you. It started as a dare, okay? I am not a person that loses a game of chicken. It's kind of a flaw, all right? I mean, I'd almost rather die than lose a game of chicken. So some years back, 3 years ago now, my marketing team wanted me to do this super boring video. Okay, older woman in a suit. They showed me the one they wanted me to emulate. Bun, scarf, and she's going to blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you guys, this is so boring, okay? I mean, we're not in the most scintillating of areas, all right? So we're just going to put everybody to sleep, back and forth, back and forth. And finally I said, fine, I'll do it. And they were like, oh, thank God, And I said, but I'm going to dye my hair pink. And they go, no, you're not. And I go, oh, yeah, I am. Because I'm very mature sometimes, okay? And at that point, I realized that I'd backed myself into a corner. And I thought, well, I am kind of tired of having grayish hair, so why not? Turns out it's this amazing social experiment. People of every age, every type, feel enabled to come up and talk to me. Everybody. No, I mean, like little girls at the beach will bring me their balls, right? Goth teenagers in Barnes & Noble smile at me. The first time that happened, I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And weirdly enough, I get a lot of old guys hitting on me, which is a little creepy. Okay, I'm married. But it's actually been a lot of fun. And it has, now we can move on to the business side of things, because that's more important. But for me, getting really serious, building a company is really the epitome of the American dream, right? Some people say it's owning a house. I think being able to build something of value out of nothing, this sustainable enterprise that people depend on and they come to work and they send their kids to college and they buy houses. Isn't that just the most amazing thing, to create something from nothing? Isn't that why people come to this country in the first place? Is to be able to have a vision like that. And so from that regard, it's really been a pretty amazing journey. And BlackLine was not my first endeavor. I actually almost starved a few times. There was one time when I was looking in my kitchen for the last package of ramen noodles, and it was expired, and I did eat it. And but I looked at it and I thought, this is all chemicals. It can't be bad, right? But in the 16 plus years since I started BlackLine, I think that the culture has changed pretty dramatically, all right? We have started to deify founders as brilliant geniuses that really cannot fail. They're infallible, all right? And we've built all these myths around them, and they're not necessarily true. What I've learned, my own experiences over the last 16 years, are really pretty different than a lot of what's out there now is the tried and true. So those are some of the things that I'm going to address today. There's only one playbook. And, we were just hearing about different pages out of the playbook, all right? First thing I'm going to say is don't necessarily listen to me. Every company has its own unique DNA. What I've learned about my company may be wonderful for your company. It may be the worst thing ever. You have got to have the sense of self-wisdom, self-knowledge, knowledge about your own company, about what is going to work for your company. So learn everything you can, and then also take it with a grain of salt, all right? In fact, I'll even go one step further. Sometimes the companies that are most likely to succeed, all right, I was certainly never anybody's most likely to succeed. Those are often the ones that fail. All right, there's a lot of hope and expectations that go behind those, and sometimes they don't work out quite the way people expect. But that's the nature of a startup, isn't it? And when you start a company, I think this is such an interesting thought. When you start a company, you are actually betting that you have an idea that somebody else missed. All right, ask yourself this. Why didn't IBM or Google or Oracle or Salesforce, why didn't they do it? Okay? Either they looked at it and said, nah, that's not a good idea, or they missed it. So when you actually decide to do a company, you're betting against the world, which is a wild, crazy thing to do. So I would say there's many different ways. There's many different plays. There's many different ways. It happens differently, all right? And even those who have done it successfully will tell you that what we did probably won't work the next time. It's a learning adventure every step of the way. And one of the things that I've seen within BlackLine is that we sell accounting software to, in many cases, very large corporations. All right, it's a very conservative buyer. It's very technical jargon. What we're doing is very specialized to what we do. So it's really interesting because, in a consumer app, right, you'll do something and you'll do a quick prototype, put it out there, see how people respond. Try taking that concept to J&J and see how they respond. All right, just try getting through the security of some of these bigger companies. And it's a whole different ballgame to work in the enterprise world. My next myth, this is one of my favorite ones. You're a rock star. No. In Los Angeles, where I'm based, there's this guy, all right? If you ask him what he does, he says, I'm in the business. I'm working on my screenplay. Brad Pitt's going to star in it. Hans Zimmer's doing the music. I'm just this close, all right? He's full of it. You know it. And you try to get away. Don't be that guy with your startup, okay? Don't be that guy. To get to the point where you quit your job, you do have to have a fantastic amount or stupid amount of confidence, all right? You really do. You are making that bet. And Some of the biggest mistakes happen when people believe their own hype. All right, when they start to drink their own Kool-Aid, they are convinced that they know all of the answers, right? And they fall in love with the idea of the business instead of the business itself. But the reality is a little different. Okay, being the CEO of a small company means that you will roll up your sleeves and do whatever job needs to be done. That might be writing code. That might be cleaning toilets. I have cleaned toilets. I heard that in one of our last sessions. Okay, and that was not okay, all right? Especially the guy's bathroom, no offense to the gentleman in the room, but it might be out buying bagels to keep people's morale up, right? It could be any number of things. You do whatever has to be done, all right? And along the way, you are going to absolutely increase your chances of success if you admire the quality of humility, okay? Humility has saved my butt, all right? I am so grateful to one of my early board members. His name is Tom Unterman. And I would take all of my stuff and I would lay out everything about my business in front of him. And he would look at all of it and he'd go, oh, you got to focus there. You got a problem about to happen, okay? Because I had the humility to go and say to somebody, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please help me? It saved our company so many different times. And so the humility to know that there are people out there that have done it, they are wise, they can help you. It's okay not to know all the answers. That's such an important quality. And, you know, it's interesting because I started BlackLine by building wealth management software, all right? After 3 years, we had precisely one paying customer, and I was out of money. And at that point, one of the accountants at the First National Bank of Nebraska came to us and said, we have a problem with our financial close. All right, we're using spreadsheets, it's not working well. You need money, we need somebody to write some software. How about if we trade? All right. That is ultimately, we ended up creating a brand new market. It is the company that we have today. Amazing. But this wonderful company that I have, it came from the idea of an accountant in Nebraska. That's not very rock star-ish, is it? Right? And yet, because I knew I had the humility to know that whatever it took I was going to do, we were able to pivot the business. And that is such an important thing to know that when something is not going to work, that you have the honesty to acknowledge that and to make the changes that need to be made. It's part of, it's that, you know, some people call it fail fast, but it's really just that ability to have humility and go, oh, not working, I got to change something there. All right. I like this next one. You're founding the next Oracle, Salesforce. All right. Remember our aspiring screenwriter? Okay. Part of the reason that that guy's so annoying is because he absolutely knows that his story ends with riches and yachts and celebrities. All right. And he's not really particularly interested in hearing the feedback or putting in the amount of work that has to happen. And the reality is most startups fail. Even BlackLine wasn't my first attempt, right? And even after we moved into accounting automation, streamlining operations, all of that, there were still many days when we were out of money. I was scared spitless, and I just didn't know that it was going to work. And when I was waiting for a check to come through so that I could make my payroll, I was not thinking about fancy cars. I was not thinking about riches, all right? And so even when you have success, it's a very long road. All right, think about this. 15 years to go from idea to IPO. All right, that's a lifetime. And you picture, when you're thinking about this, I always think about picturing clearing a path through the jungle. It's particularly bad for me because I really don't like bugs, all right? But you think about, you're just zigzagging. You have no idea where you're going. There's no road, there's no path, there's no map. You are just hacking your way along, trying to figure it out. But it's your journey, it's your story. And that's such an important thing because you don't know, maybe your company will be far more successful than Salesforce or anything else out there. You can't pattern yourself after someone else. We had to, it's been a long haul for us. For example, we had to learn how to build out a sales organization. I came from a programming background. I didn't know how to do that, all right? And honestly, the really great salespeople probably don't want to come to work for a small, non-funded startup. So you get creative. In my particular instance, my first salesperson was a longtime girlfriend, all right? I called her up and I said, I have this company and it's failing and I can't pay you very much. Would you like to come and work here and sell software? She said yes. Still my very best friend today, all right? And she spent the first 3 months cold calling. And I still get a little teary about that because imagine having a friend that good, right? That you are that direct, you say, I'm failing. Oh my God, I'm failing. And she says, yeah, I'll come help. That's the kind of people that you look for in your journey along the way. Okay, those are the people that sustain you. So she came on, she started cold calling. And when she would find a meeting, we would all jump on a plane. And we would all go there. We were all salespeople. That's one of your lessons, right? You're all salespeople in a startup. And we shared rooms because we didn't have money. And we went to the Kinko's, and I was coding the night before. And it was in Birmingham, Alabama, with HealthSouth. And they ultimately bought, but it took them like 4 weeks to make the decision. Not uncommon with an enterprise company. It could be more like 6 months or a year. But for us, it was a lifetime because if we had not gotten that deal, then we would not have been in business any longer. We were absolutely at the end of every dollar. And so I think about, those pivotal moments when somebody can be that important to your success or failure. One salesperson doesn't make a whole sales force. I ultimately hired a guy who had done marketing at Oracle, who built out a great sales, area for us, did it well. Another lesson would be when you're not good at something, find somebody who is and bring them in, okay? Beg them if you need to. It's what works. All right. Marketing was another area where I had absolutely zero talent. The original name of BlackLine was Osaba. Very unfortunate name. I know. It means I was daring, past perfect in Spanish. So unfortunate. I incorporated just a few months before 9/11. It was, But we got a really good marketing company to come in and come up with a much better name. All right. See, there's so many things that I have done wrong along the way that it's an absolute utter miracle that BlackLine has had the success that it has. All right. From the very beginning, we focused on selling to large organizations. Okay. They're all, if any of you that are in it now know the difficulty of selling, especially a SaaS product to a large company, all right? The things that you have to go through, right? In the beginning, we had 3 to 5 year sales cycles, all right? We would have, after a year, they might call up and go, great, we're introducing you and 2 other vendors to our procurement department. We hope you win in a year. Like, oh my God. And by the way, procurement departments are professional negotiators who are paid to grind you down. No, that is their job. Their job is to wring every penny out of you. And that was a tough lesson to learn how to stand your ground with a professional negotiator. That's really a hard thing to do, but every large company has them. And so you're like, okay, go back to playing your game of chicken. don't blink, right? You've got to be tough on that. So, and then once you get these large companies, doesn't mean that they're going to pay right away, okay? Could take 3 months, could take 6 months to pay. You just have no idea how long that's going to be, all right? And, but at the end of the day, having enterprise customers as your big name clients is critical to the success of your business. So I've told you all the negatives. You need to focus on all the positives. Because when you can go out and say, yes, Salesforce is a customer, Costco, General Mills, these are some of our early ones, right? They were, you know, people went, oh, I want to do what they want to do. I'm going to follow them. Other companies will follow if they think that somebody else has already done the due diligence. So it's super important to learn how to sell to the big enterprise. Getting a little bit off track here. All about writing your own story, right? And I'll tell you one more thing. One of the challenges that we faced was whether to be an on-prem software company or SaaS. In 2007, we decided to be SaaS only. We knew that it was easier to build, all right? We knew that it was easier to contract for. We knew it was easier to install. We knew it was easier to support. We knew that over the long run, we'd make a lot more money. We also knew that probably for some years there would be big deals that we would lose because they did not want to put their financial information in the cloud. All right, I heard somebody earlier saying SSAE 16 audits, right? ISO 27001, costly, you got to do them. If you've got important information for your customers and you're hosting it, you've got to have the right security protocols. All right. Turns out that that was actually a really good decision on our part. It was a little bit painful, but at the end of the day, SaaS companies get much better valuations and you have much more predictable revenue. It's a much better way to go. You do have to get past the IT department. You have to get through the hoops, but it's very much the right thing to do. All right, so in any case, all of this, right? If you become successful, it's a long road. And if you ever get there, the glamour and all the fun stuff sort of comes later. I'm still waiting for it, in fact, right? I'm still working like 12 hours a day, taking red eyes, but it's good. All right, my next one. All right, I love this one. You need funding to be successful. I run into people that are like, well, I can't start a company until I have money. You know, no. Yeah, you can, right? In fact, I would say that you can actually be much better at building a company if you have a slight edge of desperation and you're watching every penny, okay? And I want to be clear on this. VC money makes tech companies happen. It absolutely does. And not having funding is really hard. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that, you know, in fact, it's brutally hard, okay? So nobody ever says, yeah, I wish I'd, you know, not taken that money. No, that doesn't happen. And we did look at taking funding on multiple occasions, all right? Had a couple lowball offers, all right? Had some, you know, interesting things happen along the way. But it's really important to build your business not with the intent of raising capital. Okay, that can't be the primary focus. The primary focus, and it's easy to fall into that trap because the money that you get will sustain your business. But if it becomes the focus instead of the business itself, then you're going to really not be successful in the long term. Because there are some wonderful funders here today, but at the end of the day, they don't know your business, right? And if you spend your time selling them, working with them, and not building your business, ultimately, it's not going to work. And here's why. Your VCs are playing a numbers game, all right? Sad but true. They anticipate that a small percentage of their investments will have enough of a payback that it makes the whole thing worthwhile. And that's great if you're the one. But if you're not, you might not be terribly well aligned. So instead of constantly being focused on the raising of money, I think that what you've got to focus on is getting customers. Guess what? You have a real business if you have people that are willing to pay for what you do. That's it. Kind of the bottom line. And if nobody wants to pay for it, guess what? It's not worth its salt. It's just not. And so my advice always, take the smallest amount of capital that you can, all right? Keep as much control as you can. I mean, it's your baby, all right? Would you give your baby away, right? And don't spend like you're rich, all right? Don't be, I gotta tell you, it's much harder to fire people and contract than it is to grow. Much, much harder. So grow carefully, okay? Grow thoughtfully. It's very important. And you know, you've heard the statistic about how many lottery winners lose everything, all right? It's not that different with VC. People that throw large, you know, they've got paintings on the wall. No, 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 no. Again, it kind of goes back to don't be that guy in LA, right? So build a real business with paying customers, right? Run it lean, raise the money that you have to, and when you need the money, guess what? It's going to be there. It will absolutely be there if you are building a real business. Because the people that were up here today that fund businesses, they're looking for that kind of business. Hillary's nodding. She's giving me lots of good feedback throughout this whole thing. You're great to have in the front row. All right. You know, and it's interesting because for many companies, the demand to raise capital doesn't ever really go away, right? Because what's an IPO? You know, and we'll talk about that a little bit because again, it's an experience that not a lot of people have had. But in our IPO, it was a great party. It was a great party. But it's kind of like the tip of an iceberg. There was a lot that went into it before. There's a lot that's going into it now. All right. And I'll tell you a little bit about the process. A successful IPO starts at least a year before. Okay. It's not just like you go and run to NASDAQ and hit a bell. That is so not what it is. You spend countless hours with bankers and lawyers, and the bankers say that's not going to sell. And the lawyers say, that's not going to fly with the SEC. You can't say that. And you have to completely articulate everything about your company in a new way. Okay, it's actually a good exercise, but it's grueling. And it was kind of a surprise to me that we had to go through this whole process because I thought we were kind of an older, mature company at that point. But there was so much that had to happen on the front end. You have to go out and talk to investors in non-deal roadshows, NDRs. And you go out and sometimes they fall asleep in your presentations. Okay, it's happened. Or they go, I don't get it. It doesn't, I've never heard of accounting, and I just don't get it. I don't get why this is a business. You're like, oh God, I don't even know what to say to you. Had a few of those moments where you're just looking at them and they're looking at you and you're like, oh, this is awful. It's happened. All right. It's better that, though, than when they fall asleep. But you learn. You learn along the way. All right. And what's really interesting, when you get to the big day, okay, there's another surprise. IPOs create a lot of wealth. All right. This was really so interesting to me. Guess what? Everybody's got a way of grabbing their share. I didn't know that. Okay. The bankers have relationships with people that they want to reward. They want to pay back favors or they want to owe favors. They want favors owed to them. So they're like, oh yeah, give all your stock to that guy. And it's like, I didn't like that guy. He didn't even know what we did. Okay. They've got their own ideas. Your private equity partners have people that they want to reward and work with. So they'll be like, let's put all the stock over here. I had an investor, this was amazing. I met an investor in Baltimore, and he said, we don't invest in a lot of IPOs. However, I will tell you this, that if you make sure that we have a healthy allocation when it comes time to pick who gets your stock, then we will be your best shareholder ever. Okay? Came time to go through this allocation process. And the bankers were like, oh yeah, they're down at the very bottom. And I said, no, I like them. Move them up, 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 up. I got them up pretty good. They are today our biggest public shareholder. When our stock has had volatility, they've gone out and bought. Okay? They've held it to a floor. They call me. They send me prospects. They're like, oh, we're talking to this company. They need help. All right? So it was really a surprise to me that, I don't know, I just thought the stock magically went out into the market, right? And no, you have a say in that. You have some control over that, but you have to be very assertive about it. So really a very interesting part of the whole IPO process that I don't think a lot of people ever really, know. Now, being a publicly traded company has also been very interesting. Okay, we still have investors that don't necessarily get it, all right? You now have your short-term sort of talk track. You have to be super careful, super modulated, and that's not me, by the way, right? In one of my earnings calls last year, I said, I'm really disappointed. The stock dropped 25%. Yeah. I'm like, disappointed? Oh my God. Apparently that's code word for the world is ending. All right? But you don't, as a new public, CEO of a publicly traded company, newly public, you don't understand how important your tone, your modulation, your choice of words, how that can affect so many people. All right? So at the end of it, the glitz and the glamour doesn't matter nearly as much as building a successful business. When you do that, everything else does come to pass. All right. Now, I'm getting a little bit away from my myths, but all right. So this is one of my favorite ones. All right. Get the A players, boy. I got a serious letdown for you. There are people that start companies, and there are people who are fabulous people that want to get paychecks. They probably already work at Google or Salesforce, and they make a lot of money, and you can't afford them. That's the truth. All right. But here's has everybody seen the project management triangle? Fast, cheap, and good, pick two? Everybody heard that? You can only get two. I have my own version of this for early hiring. All right. Good, cheap, or not crazy? Okay. Think about this. Okay. If you don't go for good, your company's going to suffer. Your product's not going to be great. If you don't go for cheap, then you're going to burn through a lot of cash. All right? So at BlackLine, we picked crazy. All right? And it was, and when crazy is an interesting word. It's kind of a politically incorrect word. So I'm not trying to offend anybody. But, there's a Silicon Valley television show, right? And on that show, crazy is crazy, but it's kind of fun crazy. All right, it's like, oh, that's very entertaining crazy. That's not the kind of crazy that we always dealt with. All right. In the early years, we had a little bit of everything. All right, we had prescription pill addiction. Okay. We had alcohol abuse. We had people screaming at each other in the office. Right. We had hygiene issues. Oh, those are the worst. Those are the worst. Having that conversation is absolutely the worst. We had mental breakdowns, right? We had immigration issues. We had career anxiety. We had just existential anxiety, all right? And that's just the stuff that you have to deal with as the CEO before you deal with your own stress about whether or not this thing that you've sunk your life savings into is going to make it or not. Okay, it's not always. But you know what? Not all the people are difficult. Some people are just looking for the right opportunity to grow. And talent development is such a huge thing. To give people an opportunity, to give them the coaching that they need to grow into the job that they've always dreamed of. We still have people today. All right, my first head of marketing sold awnings. Yeah, like for your house. before he was my head of marketing. He's still with the company. We wouldn't have made it without him. My first engineer worked, he was in school, and I met him in a martial arts class. Okay. I mean, I was creative. I looked for people that could bring heart and soul and dedication. And so many of those people are still with us today. So talent development is so important to an organization, and giving people a chance is just a wonderful thing for both them and you. And you can have some incredible relationships that get built over time. All right. And, you know, these people are who I call my friends today. All right. And they did become rock stars, all of them. All right. Last myth. Everything about women in tech. All right. All right. So let's go back to me trying to fundraise in the early days. Is it a surprise that I could not get funding? At a good valuation. I'm old. 50, oh gosh, am I 56 or 57? I think I'm 56. All right. I'm female. At the time, I was a single mother. You can almost hear the VCs running out of the room. Okay, like, oh my God. All right. And as I heard earlier, you know, women receive about 2% of the funding that's out there, right? And there's a persistent wage gap. I loved what Alicia said. Who cares about it being, let's not do gender neutrality. Let's get the doggone money to where it needs to go, right? But this is an amazing opportunity for you, because if you happen to hire someone who happens to be a woman, all right, and you happen to pay them what they should be paid, first off, you're getting a great resource in a very competitive environment. And number two, by treating them fairly, guess what? They're going to stick around. They're going to be loyal. They're going to be wonderful. All right? Right now, about half of my C-suite is women. Frankly, that's unheard of in a tech company. Okay? And I'm looking for a CTO, if any of you guys know. See, that's going to be the tipping point, one way or the other. I'm like, oh, yeah, no. But one of the things that I think that women, one of the most damaging myths that women buy into is that they can't be a mother and a successful entrepreneur. All right? That is just so patently false. All right? And you know, we're told that having a family is going to hurt your career. And it might close some doors through no fault of your own. But there's no reason that you can't be a mother or a very involved father, right, for that matter, and also build a successful company. In fact, you will be stronger for it. I believe that being a mom made me a better CEO. All right? People bring you their hopes and dreams and where they want to go. How much of that is being a mom? More than I would like at times, okay? That's so true. And it's, you know, it's your early employees, and, you know, it's not like a lot of other office environments, all right? You have to give clear feedback. You have to have hard conversations. Being a mom is a real asset, all right? And if I had not been a parent, I can't imagine how I would have handled the stress. All right, at the end of the day, I would go home, and I was mom. That was it. No other expectations. Dinner. Even that, not always, right? You know, I mean, but that balance for me saved my life. You know, and you are going to sacrifice. Though if you do try to do it all, you are going to sacrifice. You know, I basically had my company and my kids. I was a single mom at the time. I had my company, I had my kids, I had nothing else. If I had friendships, they either died of neglect or I hired them to come work at BlackLine for almost nothing. I mean, you know, I was determined to get it to work, all right? But I can tell you the number of times that I was just completely burnt out, tired, didn't want to do it anymore. It's a hard thing to do. There's a lot of sacrifices, and you've got to know that on the front end and be willing to take it on, all right? So the truth of this is that women are incredibly undervalued in the market, all right? We all are. We've always been. Who cares? Who cares? Go out and start your own company. Show them, right? That's what you really have to do at the end of the day. All right? So, and being a CEO also made me a better parent. I could go to my kids' Halloween parades, soccer games, concerts. You know, I might still end up working all night after that, but I allowed myself the flexibility, which was so important. All right. Oh, I think I'm way over time. Are you guys okay? I don't mean to. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Get it wrapped up here. I do make a point of hiring women. All right. They are an undervalued asset. And as long as other people don't know that, it's an edge that you can have. All right. And, you know, in the tech industry, women are, you know, really undervalued in many different roles. And, you know, paying them what they deserve ultimately is something that just pays dividends in the long term. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And in conclusion, I have people ask me all the time, you know, advice for entrepreneurs. And you know what I say? Don't do it. Don't do it. And if you listen to me, if you don't listen to me, if you go, gosh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, I can be successful, then you might actually be able to do it. All right? That's my logic. If you actually listen to me, you never would have made it in the first place. All right? But if you shrug it all off, you might very well be an entrepreneur. And you might have the very best or the very worst journey, or both, that you ever imagined. But along the way, you learn and you learn and you learn. And sometimes you get the privilege of building something that stands on its own feet. Okay, it becomes its own thing where people's kids go to college, they get married, they show you pictures of the house that they bought and the dog that they rescued. And it's this amazing privilege that you get to experience in your life. And I've had that privilege, and thank you for letting me share it with you today.